And welcome to the breakout sessions for the Enterprise Integration Summit. This is a session for Peregrine Connect, and joining us are two terrific speakers, Marty Woznicki, President, and Manoj Telraja, Development Manager. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited about being here.
You know, we're really glad to have both Marty and Manoj with us this morning. Marty, as president, has 30 years in enterprise software and integration, and he is going to introduce us this morning to Peregrine Connect's hybrid integration platform for digital transformation. It really forms an umbrella of a suite of integration tools and services that will help deliver a more modern integration experience and cut cost and notably improve end-to-end security with simplicity and reliability. And for his part, Manoj is going to give us a terrific demo. He looks out for new architectures and features for the Peregrine Connect system, so no one better to give us a demo there. He has 15 years experience in developing applications and integration for business systems. The session again is entitled Enhancing Enterprise Integration in Your Hybrid Environment, Speed, Security, and Cost Optimization. We're going to take a look at the Peregrine Connect architectures for simplifying app integration across the lifecycle, design, connection, and management. And notably, we're going to get a quick little demo, and we'll get a sense of how Peregrine Connect delivers these benefits in real life. Just a quick reminder before I hand it to Marty and Manoj, you can download the slides, and I really recommend you do. They're really filled with a lot of great detail. Just click that big red button under the view screen. You'll be able to get them right now without any registration. And speaking of registration, we've also got some other terrific resources that are available, downloads and other PDF material to give you a better sense of Peregrine Connect's capabilities, and some great case studies as well. And we love to make this interactive, so to connect with Marty and Manoj, just type in the question box. So with all that, Marty, let me turn to you and tell us about enhancing enterprise integration in your hybrid environment.
Thanks, Vance. I'm pretty excited about introducing the Paragon Connect hybrid integration platform. It's our new platform. We're introducing it within the next month. That'll be our launch. A lot of things we want to cover today. The platform, the suite of products and services underneath it, including things like Neuron ESB, containing all the glue, tie things together, the new design studio to really build out better integration scenarios, and the management suite portal. Now, this is important because this allows you to do all the operational monitoring, all the application monitoring, more so all the security tie downs. And then we're going to go into microservices with Peregrine Connect and actually show you a real demo. And then we'll go into our Q&A session. So if you look at the products underneath the Peregrine umbrella, Peregrine is really an evolution of our existing integration platform. Now, one of the core pieces of that is Neuron ESB. Neuron ESB provides a scalable micro-hosting model, connectors to tie systems together, API hosting capabilities, graphical business process and workflow designers, and core messaging. But we're enhancing that and moving forward by introducing components for the platform. So the Paragon Runtime Platform, that's involved in notifications, really tying the events from the runtimes into our management suite, and then even back in the design studio, and providing that active health monitoring. Then we've got the design studio itself. We wanted to bring customers that true end-to-end visibility of their business integration flows, important to us, as well as an integrated Git environment, end-to-end testing, and we wanted to be able to think about simple scenarios as well as the complex enterprise integration scenarios that we've always tackled. Now, one thing that you'll see, a theme with all of our tools, is that backwards compatibility. We don't believe in the 400-page migration white paper. We just believe things should work. Now, this is where the management suite comes in. The management suite, built on .NET Core, provides all the operational and application monitoring and management that you could imagine, including alerting and reporting, as well as a tight security model. Peregrine Connect supports a lot of different topologies. You can install it on-prem, you can install it hosted in the cloud, and with Peregrine Connect, you can create these hybrid integration scenarios, tying on-premise applications easily with cloud-hosted applications and your custom business logic, supporting everything from citizen integration scenarios to very complex enterprise scenarios, something we've always been, quite frankly, famous for. Why would people use the Paragon Connect platform? It's all about reducing development costs and simplifying that complexity. We really focus on agility, extensibility, and ease of use because we know customers need that to build complex scenarios today. They need to get to market quickly. And if you look at a lot of the products out there, a lot of these integration brokers, they just don't deliver on those. And historically, that's something we've always done, especially with one of our core products underneath this suite, Neuron ESB. Neuron ESB today provides API connections for customers, business process automation, cloud and application connectors, as well as long-running workflow and messaging systems. If you look at what Neuron ESB delivers today, there's a suite of adapters and connectors that tie to various systems. I mean, if it's a database, an application, or a protocol, typically we have it. And the fun part is you can build these adapters yourself in a matter of hours. Neuron also had API connectors where we can host an API, you can create it on the fly within Neuron, or you can call out to APIs that exist, supporting anything from REST and SOAP. But more than that, you also need something to glue all this together. And that was really our process designer was our core piece, a drag and drop environment, pretty easy to create custom business logic, service orchestration, parallel processing, had full extensibility. So if you wanted to write a little code, you could just do that. You wouldn't have to compile things into assembly, no crazy deployment process, and you could test and deploy right within Designer. Very powerful. We also offered that with long-running workflows. Sometimes you need that state. Sometimes you need that tracking. Sometimes you need to be able to go back and see exactly where something is in the process and maybe even restart that at the last failure point. So workflow was a powerful feature in Neuron as well. Now, one of the things we wanted to do was introduce a new design experience. Although you could do all these great things within Neuron ESB, you still had to navigate. You didn't have that true end-to-end visibility. And hence what we're trying to do with Design Studio is give users a brand new experience. And not just the end-to-end visibility of their design, but also built-in integration with source control. Build, test, and deploy, and direct integration with the new management suite. Again, remember, the Paragon Connect platform is all about an evolution of the Neuron integration broker features. So when you open the Designer, you've got this full backwards compatibility with any kind of solutions built with Neuron ESB. And once you open it up, that means end-to-end flow. We even provide templates. So if you want to do that citizen integrator simplicity, you can do that, but you can do far more complex things. And within the Designer, you still have availability of the process designer as well as the workflow designer. Now, why? If I can do all these things in the Neuron Explorer, why would I use the Design Studio? Well, think about it. Maybe you have a scenario, and that scenario might entail receiving maybe a purchase request using a REST API. And then once you receive that, you need to make a decision. And maybe you need to update several systems in case it's a customer, or maybe several different systems in case it's a vendor. Well, in Neuron today, you'd have to create maybe 4 adapter endpoints. You'd have to create your service endpoint in another location, and then you'd create maybe your business process, and then you'd have to link them all together. Easy to do when you know the product, not too many moving pieces, but you don't have that end-to-end visibility and flow. And you can't do an end-to-end test. I mean, you can at runtime, but not necessarily in this Designer. Well, guess what? Using the Design Studio, not only do you get a true end-to-end view of how all these elements are tied together, but you can also do an end-to-end test right from the Designer and then do a deploy. There's no navigation, no craziness you have to go through, just integration made simple. Now, the upside with the Design Studio, it's tied in with this great new management suite to give you that operational management, the application management, alerting, and security platform that you really need to manage enterprise integration deployments. If you go into the management suite today, One of the core features that you'll see is operational management. And that's important. It's a little different from application management. Your operational guys are thinking about resources, they're thinking about machines, our event processor, the subsystems in those that we require to run everything. So here you can actually get a card view or a list view, and then you can drill down into those and actually see what's happening at the machine level, even at the EPS level, what's happening at the security level. Now, once you have operations set up and you're actually able to see that, you can monitor the environment in real time. You can get statistics from these. You can get CPU utilization. You can drill down and see what applications are deployed on what machines and what environments. You get a good view from an operations perspective. Now, application monitoring is a little different. If I'm a developer or I'm a business user, I'm probably more interested in seeing, hey, how is my 401 application doing? In that case, I can get that card view, go into that drill down view, and get good metrics, even heat maps. And if you're using Neuron ESB messaging, pub/sub, you can actually see remote endpoints and what activity is happening and how those remote endpoints are deployed and where they're deployed to. Pretty powerful. Now, if they're service endpoints or adapter endpoints, you can drill down into the actual endpoint and get real statistics. You can get one chart, or you can break these things up into their individual charts. You can get service rate, duration, get all the log entries, and truly monitor these applications. You can go as high as you want or as deep as you want. And the whole idea here is to be able to get to that root cause that you're looking for. Be able to see how things are performing against each other. Now, what if things fail? Important to note, we're really good at capturing all these failures, but at the end of the day, you probably need to know when something occurs. So we're offering alerting in the management suite. And alerting is great because why? Whether you're in operations or in applications, you can create alerts to do a lot of different things. You can create alerts to say, notify you if the machine's going down, or maybe it's being overutilized, or maybe it's being underutilized. You can actually create alerts on things like, hey, I'm receiving too many requests every second on this service endpoint. Or maybe I haven't received anything in the last hour, and that's unusual. Maybe I should be notified. You can create these alerts and you can get notified in the portal, or subscribing to alerts, you can get notified with SMS text messages or even email. Pretty robust environment. And then for administrating this, you can go in, you can get reports off these alerts, drill down to see what is happening in the system and who's subscribing to what. Now, alerting is important because why? You need to know when things go south. Well, security is just as important. Our goal is to be secure out of the box, very tightly. So everything's encrypted for us, and hence we allow you to generate encryption keys, back those things up, and actually restore your data using encryption keys. Now, you can also have control of your password policy. You can be PCI compliant. You can choose to modify that policy. You can also enable two-factor authentication. And out of the box, we provide our own OpenID compliant store to authenticate against and create users and invite those users. But if you want, you can always use Azure Active Directory. Maybe you have users outside of your network that you want to be able to use that portal. Or maybe you want to use a third-party OpenID compliant server like Thinkatecture. Well, you can do that too. And once you decide what your authentication mechanism is, well, that means you can bring those users in. You can define those users, manage those users, and then you can add users to roles. You can create those roles, manage those roles. And once you have roles, you can define granular permissions for those roles, not just from the administration, the operations, and the reporting space, but also at the application and business flow level. And that's important. Now, we're next going to jump to how you can create true microservices using the Peregrine Connect platform. Now, who's going to do that for us? Well, I'm going to introduce Manoj Talreja, my development manager. He's done a lot of work in this space, and he's excited about it. Manoj, why don't you take it away?
Hey, thanks, Marty. Really excited to show what we have today, what we are working from so long. And it's an exciting time in the integration space. It's a pretty cool product, which we're going to introduce. Whenever we talk about the integration, it's all about the microservices architecture. Like people want to build and deploy their services in the microservice fashion. So how the typical microservice architecture look like? So you have a virtual machine. On the virtual machine, you have an operating system running. On the operating system, you will be running a Peregrine host runtime, which has business processes and flow and your application, which are basically opened up using some kind of API, some kind of API contract. So it's a traditional approach. People build a microservice architecture. With the storm of all these clouds and the new patterns are coming in, people are more and more looking towards the container-based microservices architecture. So what is a containers? Containers are like a virtual machine, and it has its own file system, and it contains a base operating system. You basically specify what software you want to have this container in. And once you have that container definition specified, you can build your services on top of that particular container. If we talk about the Peregrine runtime, the way it works is you have VM, Windows OS, and then on the Windows OS, there is a container sitting on it. And in the container, there is a Peregrine image or Peregrine container, which is going to run. And again, everything is same, except now we are looking towards approach, more like a DevOps approach of building a software or deploying a software. So that's how this looks like. And then I'm going to just jump in the demo straight away. So what we have is our Neuron Explorer here, which has a client connector. This client connector is just basically think of a web API. So web API has a URL called Hello Neuron. And then we have a process associated with it. Process is like your orchestration engine. You're going to write some business logic onto it. So in my process, I'm writing a business logic, which is with a C# code. All it is doing is saying basically just hello from Neuron container. And that's pretty much I'm doing. It's like a hello world application, which is running in the Peregrine host, Peregrine runtime. So when you build the solution, you get this Docker Compose file generated automatically using Neuron. So this has all the information about what image to pull from the Docker hub and what is going to run. So user doesn't have to define anything. All it is just simple click and it's just going to start it. So I'm going to go here and going to open the PowerShell, and I'm just going to point to this directory. And in the directory, I will be going and just going to say Docker Compose. And what it is going to do is basically taking this solution, which I have built using Neuron Explorer, and it is basically running the solution as a Docker container itself. And okay, so my endpoint host is running, which has my web service created. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for so these are the two containers which are running right now based on our solution. And I want to look for an IP address of one of the container where so that way I can use that IP address to reach out to my web API. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to say Docker inspect 7BE. And I have this IP address. If I hit this IP address, I should be able to get to my service. So I'm going to take this, and I get this text saying hello from Neuron container. So that's basically going to the Docker container and in Neuron container, which is running under Docker, and returning me a response. So like you have all this data, but how are you going to monitor it? You have all this API, but with the Peregrine portal, we are able to monitor at the real time what is happening in our Docker container. So like, for example, this is our monitoring UI, which Marty just discussed a couple of minutes ago. And in there, this is the service. So this was a service which I have defined, and it is basically showing that the requests are coming in here from the Docker container. It's basically what it does. It's the Docker container sends the event back to the portal saying how it is running, what is the throughput, what is the load. You can look at a bunch of things like how's the CPU usage look like in the Docker container. In fact, if you look at it, we have the logging enabled in here and basically shows you that, okay, this is the reply which just came from this particular API called hello from Neuron container. So that's how you're going to look at all your container stats on the portal. So in a nutshell, like this portal is basically a monitoring tool which is going to monitor your Docker containers. Nice thing about the Docker containers is those are taking, world by storm. There's all these cloud vendors named AWS, Azure, or GCP. They all have some kind of offering on the container side, Docker container side. They have like native support out of it. For example, in AWS, you have ECS, which is the container service. In Azure, you have AKS, which is the Kubernetes service. You can manage all those containers using all those cool tools out there. So that's how Neuron and Peregrine Connect has a inbuilt support for the Docker containers. And with that, I'm just going to hand it back to Marty.
Manoj, thanks again for that great demo on microservices. Well, that wraps up our session. Hopefully everyone got a lot out of the Paragon Connect platform and what it can do for you, especially around management, security, design, and microservices. So Vance, I guess let's wrap it up. And if there's any questions.
Marty, Manoj, thanks very much for a great session. A lot of comments, a lot of thoughts going on as we look at this whole exploding hybrid integration platform market. Certainly it's a big topic here this morning at the Enterprise Integration Summit. Let's drill into Peregrine Connect as you begin to introduce all these capabilities to your current customers and new ones. All these patterns out there, APIs, flows, SaaS integration, if-then in applications for triggers, just so many different things. I wonder, is it too early for you to tell us, Marty and Manoj, what some of the early patterns are or popular integration tasks are?
Well, I think we see a lot of people right now trying to figure out how can we expose our back-end systems as simple services that can be incorporated in other applications. We see that. We also see business automation as a big move, especially with the workflow, and having that tie in simple is actually pretty important. One of the things we really wanted to do with Paragon Connect is take a lot of these services and make sure they are very well integrated. I think a challenge that a lot of platforms have is that they offer you 20 different products and none of them talk to each other. Either you end up stitching products together or they offer you a lot of different subsystems and there's no continuity between those subsystems. It's like, okay, here's the carburetor, here's a spark plug, here are the bolts, and now figure out how to put them all together yourself.
Let's get a little deeper and talk specifically about some popular use cases on the minds of our attendees here. Here's one. How do I use Integration Broker to change data across multiple systems within my environment?
Well, that's actually pretty easy to do with the Design Studio now. You can easily do an end-to-end flow, expose something as, say, a REST or SOAP endpoint, and call different services actually in parallel, whether those are services or using our own connectors to tie systems together. So you can make either one-way requests or request reply type of calls against those systems. You can aggregate those right in the Business Flow Designer and return that response to the calling client. So it's actually pretty easy. The nice thing with the Business Flow Designer is that you can do things like parallel processing and complex looping structures.
Fantastic. Another dimension to integration, Marty, is I'm sure you know, it's that whole thing of reliability. Here's a question that talks to that. How does one know that there is a failure of data to reach an endpoint in Peregrine Connect?
Oh, well, that's the real strength of the management suite and the fact that everything integrates in the management suite fairly seamlessly, I might add. Using the management suite in Paragon Connect, you can create alerts so you can be notified when there's any kind of failure. You can also be notified when, say, something exceeds any threshold that you've defined. Whether that's on a service endpoint, say an adapter endpoint, whether that's on a workflow, a process flow, or even at the machine or CPU memory level. And that way you get alerted and hence you can take action. The management suite gives you the ability to diagnose those issues fairly quickly now. There's several things that you can do, right? With your workflows, it really depends on how you've designed those workflows, with persistent points, et cetera. Say with a non-state type of process flows, then you can actually resubmit those failed messages. And the management suite gives you the ability to resubmit messages directly within the tool itself.
The question here says, how proactive can the Peregrine Connect environment be to help me get data not only where it needs to be, but in the form that it needs to be in?
So business flows can be designed in a number of different ways, but they're pretty flexible. You can use any of our connectors and serve as endpoints within these business flows. So give an example, our connectors can be used to monitor outside applications of technology. Maybe you're taking in XML or JSON, flat files, binary files from an FTP site, or maybe from a queue. Maybe you're bringing data in from a database, or maybe you're receiving outbound events from Salesforce. And then that connector can call widgets in our business process. Maybe part of that process is executing some business rules, maybe doing some asynchronous batch splitting, maybe running transformations on that data. Maybe it needs to take that information and translate XML to JSON or JSON to XML or flat file to JSON. We actually have widgets that do all those. That can be just literally configured via a property grid. And then maybe the next part of that process is, well, great, now I need to maybe update a database using the existing, say, ODBC adapter or some database adapter. Maybe you need to update vendor information in SAP using our SAP adapter, or customer information in Dynamics CRM or Salesforce using that respective adapter. So very easy to accomplish things like that within the Paragon Connect platform.
Wow, Marty, fantastic. Really rich set of capabilities there for app and data on-premise and cloud. A really fantastic look at the new Peregrine Connect. Thanks very much for all the information, especially for the demo and the great Q&A. We appreciate your time.
Well, thanks for having us, and really thanks for giving us the opportunity to introduce Peregrine Connect. We're pretty excited about the new platform.
I can see why, and the pleasure was all ours, particularly for sure. Thanks again.